So Yaakov, should I say?
100%. Yeah, we're still waiting for guys to get on. Go 100%.
Okay, so the Minchas Lodz was like the most religious man in Europe, right? So he went there to Israel on one trip, and he wanted to see the Elfandri. The Elfandri was his Rebbe. Icky, you know who the Elfandri was?
Yes.
Okay, so he was his Rebbe. So he wanted to go see. He went to see him with the Shamus, and the Elfandri was busy. Whatever it was, he was busy. So Minchas Elazar said he would come back, let's say Tuesday, 9:00. So Elfandri sent him a message, don't come back, I don't want to see you, you're a shagitz. Because Elfandri kept Shaz Manius, and he doesn't want to see somebody who lives on Goyish hours. You don't want to talk to him, forget it.
I know, you know, now you say it, I remember. Yes, it's in the book. They wrote a book on the mice, on the whole, on the.
Oh, yeah, there was a book on the whole trip. Yeah.
Who were you saying is from, or the Minchas Elazar or the Elfandri?
No, the Minchas was the firmest person in Europe. The Elfandri was probably the most firmest person in Eretz Yisrael or the whole world. I don't know.
I think the whole world. Yeah. It's wild, those stories. Anyways, all right, we ready to roll?
Sounds good.
Yaakov, maybe Taka, we should move it because I have a chasana tomorrow in Williamsburg.
Oh no, don't go down that road, man.
We're gonna quarantine.
Can you keep your webcam on so we can see all the people wearing masks?
There is somebody on this staff that has a wedding tonight in Brooklyn. One of those behind closed doors weddings where they lock you in and you can't leave until they let you out.
They're not so secretive about it. You go on social media, everybody's posting all their videos and everything. Everybody's seeing everything.
They took a video. Someone took a video of one of these cops going like this through a camera through. I think it looked like Williamsburg, going like this through the windows to find people diving with a minion.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we already said yesterday, for some reason, people don't look at social media that it's farhesia, right? People think like they're going to post stuff on social media. Nobody's going to see it and people haven't gotten that message yet that it's, that's why I really believe that a guy. Yeah.
No, I'm saying I missed out all the good stuff on Motzei Shabbos, so I can't like interrupt while I'm watching the YouTube. But I didn't get that whole thing. Why? That's about as farhesia these days as you can get.
I know, but people don't look at it like that. People don't look at it like that's farhesia for whatever reason. They don't.
It's a degree of separation. It's a degree of separation.
I guess it's
recorded forever. It's more. If a guy is standing around smoking on Shabbos,
talking to me,
whoever sees him, and that's it. But if he posts on social media, that's forever. You see the
timestamp, but the people don't look at it.
Yeah, but Icky, how many times do you have people retracting what they say? Oh, I didn't mean, I didn't this. How
it was a joke.
Stupid can you be?
Listen, Abraham Lincoln once said, "Don't believe everything you see on the internet."
No,
I don't understand. What don't people look at it?
He doesn't look at it like it's farhesia. That's what I'm saying. For whatever reason, the guy doesn't look at it like he's doing this in front of everybody. I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
Because I'm assuming that you have contact with people who post things on shot, right? Yeah, you know better than the rest of us, I'm assuming. But the guys who are doing that don't think that anyone can see them?
They do, but they don't put two and two together that people are going to chop that it was sent out on a Shabbos, et cetera, et cetera.
I have a friend that's not religious anymore, and I follow him, and he posts day trips all Shabbos, what he did at Shabbos. I don't think he cares. I don't think it's even in his mind.
She's by eating out on Cedarst. Be matzliach. Did you cause him to become not from?
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
You see what I'm talking about? I didn't set you up for that one.
Who from the doctor?
That guy is Mechal Shabbos b'front. He Taka is a Mechal Shabbos b'front. Would he be Mechal Shabbos in front of you? Would that guy be Mechal Shabbos in front of you?
He would not. He would not.
Yeah.
He would not. You know him. You know him too. But I'm just saying is that when he's in the area with his family and stuff like that, he's not. But when he lives with where he lives and with his family, He totally is. Machal Shabbos.
Okay, so
And he
then
posts
that's a raya, that there, right? He's not
But
gonna,
his family follows him as well. So they also know that he does it as well.
right, that's what I'm saying. There seems to be a disconnect between
Right.
people posting on Shabbos and actually being
or he's
Machal Shabbos.
respectful, or he's respectful of his parents in the area that he's in. Just
Okay,
because
but that might make him not a Machal Shabbos for Esya then. That might qualify. That's what we're saying. That might make it qualify that there is some sort of respect there.
Isn't a picture ATIS or timestamps ATIS?
Not really. Even if it's
No, I
Adis,
think
so
you
what?
have to.
Meaning, if as long as he shows some sort of respect, then you can't say that he's like a mummer. That's what we're saying.
I heard a shir years ago from Rabbi Leff from Moshav Matisyahu, and he said that when he was a Rav, when he first became a Rav in Florida, he was a Rav in Miami, and he was walking to Shul, and he saw a member of his Shul parking like 4 blocks away from Shul, and then parking his car on a side street and walking the last 4 blocks to Shul. So he asked the guy, he said, "What are you doing?" He said, everyone knows that you're a machal, you drive to Shul. No one's under the presumption that you walk. So he said, "Rabbi, you don't understand. My grandfather parked 4 blocks away and walked to Shul, and my father parked 4 blocks away and walked to Shul. This is our family minhag. We park 4 blocks away, we walk to Shul."
Very good. I don't know whether to laugh or to cry, but okay, but it's whatever. It's it's interesting. Hi, Nabuch. Yeah. Anyways, I hear. So you're saying that guy is a Michal Shabbos for Hesi? That's what you're
So
saying.
what's the difference between a mummer and an apikoros?
I'm not so sure there's such a difference. See, an apikoros can be religious, right? But he doesn't really believe. So why is he religious? I don't know. But meaning, apikoros could be he doubts everything and he doubts the Rebbeinu Shalom and he said he's very cynical and all that.
Doesn't it
Don't
take
say
a lot to
don't
be
say
an
that makes me an
apikoros, though?
apikoros. Don't say that I'm an apikoros now. But what? But that's. But yeah, that's what it. An apikoros can be on top of that, or even with being.
Doesn't it take a lot to be an apikoros though? Like, weren't there like guidelines on how from you have to be and how much you have to learn?
Yeah, or not from, or whatever.
Don't you have to be learned to a certain level to be an apikoros?
Yes, usually. You got to know enough to be able to try and yeah. Okay, let's go. So anyway, so that's pretty much Chazara from yesterday. So that's good. That was basically the whole daf yesterday about who do we call Machal Shabbos, and that whether they could be part of an Eruv or mevatel the reshus, so they have to sell the reshus, right? And then the rest of the Amud was the new mishna. What is we talk about when somebody forgets to be part of the Eruv, right? So if he forgets to be part of the Eruv, so what can he do? So the main part that the Gemara is going to focus on tonight is if one guy forgets to do the Eruv, so he could be mevatel his reshus, right? Even on Shabbos, we said yesterday, he could even on Shabbos he could be mevatel his reshus. But if 2 guys forget to be part of the Eruv, then they're allowed to be mevatel their reshus to others, but everybody else can't be mevatel their reshus to them. Right? Meaning, let's say you have a yard. 10 people in a chutzner. 2 of the guys forgot to be part of the Eruv, so they can.
Why are we not? We're not doing an Eruv for like a. They're not doing an Eruv for like a year like we do.
Seems like
you don't make an Eruv for every year.
You're right. I think probably the food got decayed. That's I'm saying very balabata sheteretz, right? But I think that their food decayed. So they had to constantly or they needed the food pasha to eat. That's what I think. I'm not so sure. I don't know if I'm right, but that's my assumption that they needed the food. Either they needed the food to eat or the food got decayed. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So we're on the second line up from the bottom of Daf Samach Tesam base. So one of the cases in the Mishnah was again with the 2 people. And then we said, She'echad noisen reshus, the Mishnah says one person is allowed to give reshus, v'noita reshus, and can take reshus, meaning he can receive everybody being mevatel their property to him, but 2 can't. So the Mishnah seems to repeat itself. Why did the Mishnah have to repeat it? She'echad noisen reshus, hasu lamali, what do you need that case for? I noisen tanina, he noito tanina. If for him to give reshus, we learned it, and to take reshus, we learned it. So the Gemara says, Sefer tzrichale. No, we need it for the Sefer. Shnayim noisne reshus. 2 people give reshus. That's what you need it for. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? Hanami pshita. We said that's also pasha that 2 people are allowed to give reshus, right? If 2 people forget, they could be mevatel their reshus. So the Gemara says, Mao the same ligs are. Now we're on Amud Aleph. Mao the same ligs are dilma asi livatule lahu. No, maybe we make a gezerah that if you're going to allow 2 guys to accept reshus from people, so we're afraid that they're going to. I'm sorry, if we're going to allow 2 guys to give reshus to people, maybe they're also going to accept, and we know that 2 people accepting reshus doesn't work. Kamash Malan, that it's not. Kamash Malan, that we don't make that gezerah. We do allow 2 people to give reshus. We don't allow 2 people to take reshus. Now, to me, it sounds like a fine gezerah to make. I mean, I could see 2 people very much confusing. Say, hey, I can give my reshus, I can be mevatel my reshus, so why can't I take the reshus from everybody else? I could see that as being a very logical gezerah to make, but the Chachamim didn't make the gezerah. So, okay. Yeah. Okay, that's on the right. So we have to have amunas chachamim on the once we're continuing with the apikaris thing, right? Just because you think they should make a gezerah, they didn't make a gezerah for whatever reason. They didn't make the gezerah. Okay, they noitel reshus, but they're not allowed to take reshus. Again, what do you mean? Lamali, what do you need this for? Why do you have to say that? We know this already. That 2 people can't take reshus. So why do you have to repeat? No, we need it. Afagav da amri like kani almanas lahaknos. Right. Meaning, you would think that one of them is going to go over. Here's where you get a smart aleck guy, and he says, "Okay, you 2 guys didn't include yourself in there, so we have a way out of this, right? You'll take because everybody can be mevatel reshus to 1 guy, right? So let everybody be mevatel reshus to 1 guy, and then that 1 guy goes and turns and gives it to the other guy. Now we have a workaround, as we call it, right? So." Maybe you would think you could do that. Kamash Malon, the Mishnah is telling you, no, you can't do that. That type of shtick won't work because it's the same type of concept. Fine. So then Abaye Meraba. We had this question a bunch of blot ago, or we referred to it. Abaye Meraba. Abaye asked the Shaila from Rabba. Chamisha Sheshruyim b'chatzer achas. You have 5 people living in a chatzer. V'shokach echad mehem v'lo Eruv. And one of them forgot and didn't make an Eruv. So now what do we have to do? So he has to be mevatel his reshus. On Shabbos, he forgot to give in the bread, right? So then he has to go and donate his property to everybody. So when he's doing that, does he have to give it to all 5 or can he just give it to 1? Right? So does he have to give it to each one of the 5? Right, and say that each one of you guys has rights to my yard, or you could just give it to 1 guy, right? Meaning the point is, if he gives it to that 1 guy, and that 1 guy made the Eruv, so who cares, right? Meaning you have 5 guys that live in a yard, 4 of the guys were part of the Eruv, 1 guy was not. So why does he have to go give the rights? Does he have to knock on all 4 guys' doors and say, by the way, my house for Shabbos is your house, or my yard is your yard, right? That's one option. Or can you say, why does he have to go to all 4 guys? Just go to 1 guy, say, here, my house is yours. That guy made an Eruv, right? That guy made an Eruv, so whatever's his is everybody else's, right? So why does he have to go to all 4? So Amalei, you need to go to each and every one. Fine. Then Esvei, we have a brisa here. I think it's 7 different cases. 7 different cases of people forgetting to be mevatel, where some cases the Chachamim allowed a bittul, in some cases the Chachamim don't allow a bittul. Yeah? So, Esvei, Echad Shaloi Eruv, somebody who didn't make an Eruv, Noisin Reshus Le'echad She'eruv. He can give his Reshus to somebody who did make an Eruv, right? That's pretty poshut. Shnayim She'eruvu, 2 people that made an Eruv, Noisin Reshus Le'echad Shaloi Eruv. They can give their Reshus to somebody who didn't make an Eruv. That's where the kasha is going to be. Right, again, Shnayim she'irvu, Noisin Reshusan le'echad shelo Eruv. 2 people that made the Eruv can be mevatel their Reshus to 1. The Shnayim, that's case number 2. Case number 3. Shnayim shelo Eruv, Noisin Reshusan le'shnayim she'irvu. 2 people that didn't make an Eruv can give their Reshus to 2 people that did make an Eruv. Okay, that's pretty straightforward, right? Two didn't make an Eruv are giving over the reshus to two people that didn't make an Eruv. Oy le'echad shelo Eruv, or to one guy who they can give it to a guy who did not make an Eruv. Avaloy echad she'eruv nice. So those are all the three. The first three, was it 1, 2, 3? Right. The first three cases, the Eruv all works. The next cases don't. Avaloy echad she'eruv nice reshus le'echad shelo Eruv. A person who made an Eruv cannot give his reshus to somebody who didn't make an Eruv. Ve'ein shnayim she'eruvu nice reshus l'shnayim shelo Eruv. Two people that made an Eruv can't give the reshus to two that didn't make an Eruv. Ve'ein shnayim shelo Eruvu nice reshus l'shnayim shelo Eruv. And two guys that didn't make an Eruv, right, can't give it over to two people that didn't make an Eruv. The Gemara is going to go through all these cases as we go along the Amud. Whatever it is, Katani Miyas. Okay, so what does the Gemara want with all these cases? Katani Miyas Reisha Echad Shelo Eruv Nice Reshus Echad She'eruv. A guy who didn't have an Eruv can give his reshus to somebody to make an Eruv. Now, if you stop and think about it, again, it's a very simple case. Well, it's not so simple, but the case seemingly is that one guy didn't make an Eruv and one guy did make an Eruv. Now, clearly there has to be a third guy here, right? Because if it's just two guys, so then what do you mean? One guy made an Eruv with who? Who did he make the Eruv with? He made a virtual Eruv, right? So clearly there's a third. L'chara has to be a third player here, right? Yet the Gemara says, so now let's see. So hey, what's the case? I'm sorry. If there was no other person with them, bahadi man Eruv. Who's he making Eruv with? Ela pshita the ika achrina bahade. There is somebody else in the yard. V'katani le'echad she'eruv. And yet the Brisa says that they both of them can give it over to the guy who made the Eruv, right? So what do you see? That they don't.
He doesn't have to go.
He can give it over to one guy. He doesn't have to go to each and every guy in the yard, right? There's two guys here that made the Eruv, right? And one guy who didn't. So we're saying that one guy can go over to one guy and give him the Eruv and give him his property. He doesn't have to go to both guys, right? So that's very straightforward. After a long brisa, the kasha is very straightforward. You see clearly from the brisa that one guy who forgot to do the Eruv just has to give it over to one guy. He doesn't have to go over to every individual that's in the yard that didn't make an Eruv, that made an Eruv, and give his property over. Okay, so Rabba has a very interesting teretz for Rabba. What's Rabba going to say? No, we're talking about where the guy was there, but then he died. Right? Since the guy died, there's nobody else to give the Eruv to. But theoretically, had he been alive, meaning he was alive Friday night, then he died. So there's no two people to give the Eruv to. So he only gave it to one. But theoretically, had he been alive, he would have to. Yeah, so then the Gemara asks, Ida Hava Umis, if he was alive and then he died, then what about the Seifa? Somebody who was part of the Eruv cannot give his reshus over to a guy who didn't make an Eruv, right? Now, so again, why? We got three people we're going to have three people here again. A person who made an Eruv, who was part of Eruv, can't give his reshus to somebody who didn't make an Eruv. And if he was there and then he died, right? Why can't he? It's 1-to-1, right? Elapshita de Isay. Must be that he is alive, right? When we the Sefer Isay, Resha Nami is in. In the Sefer, the guy's alive, so in the Resha must be alive. So then the Gemara says, no, Midi area, is that so? Hakad Isay, Hakad Isay. No, the Resha, he was alive. He was not alive. In the Sefer, he was alive, right? It's one. Who says the Brisa has to be consistent all the way through? Different cases, different things. Yeah, Teda. And what's a proof to this? The Katani Sefer, the Resha, we've learned in the Sefer of the Resha, V'shnayim Shaloi Irvu, two people that didn't make an Eruv, Noisim Reshus and L'shnayim She'irvu. They can give it to two that made an Eruv. L'shnayim in Le'echad Loi, to two they can give, but to one not. Of course they should be able to give to one. Must be that it's talking about where there's different amounts of people there. Abaya Omar, okay, that's Rabba's way. Abaya, right? The Abaya Omar, my lebeis la echad mi beis. What does it mean? He can give it to two. He has to give it to one of the two, but it doesn't mean he has to give it to both. That's the way Abaya is going to answer that part. I know it's a little technical. It's not as geschmack as last night's stuff. What should I tell you? Something where it says, "Listen, la echad she'iriv, or la echad sheloi iriv." Why don't you just say, okay, we can go one guy that made an Eruv or one guy that didn't make an Eruv? Why do you have to say? Why do you have to leave it vague? So when it says kasha, no, that's taka kasha. That the Gemara doesn't really have an answer for. Fine. Okay, now the Gemara is going to go through all the different cases.
What was that last the last one? Can you repeat that last one again?
What, the kasha?
Yeah.
So listening le'echad she'irav, right? Say that he can give to one of the people who did the Eruv, right? And then say oila echad sheloi irav, or somebody who didn't make an Eruv, right? Meaning, why do you
leave that akasha? You already answered that earlier on when you said that the whole premise that you can't give it to somebody who didn't make an Eruv.
What are you saying?
Even if it's 1-to-1, right?
Right.
The guy who made the Eruv, or 2-to-1, right? Let's just say the guy's alive and the two, right? The guy makes an Eruv. He can't be mevatel to somebody who wasn't involved in the Eruv, right?
Correct.
Right. So why isn't that same logic applied here to this case?
And
meaning, why is the Gemara leaving it as a why is the Gemara leaving it as a kasha? They answered that kasha already. That it can't be to somebody who didn't make the Eruv. A person that made the Eruv can't be mevatel to somebody who didn't make the Eruv.
No, but
that
no,
seems to be
here
the
it's just saying, why
premise.
don't you just? No, you're right. But I think
So
what it's saying is just.
So how do you say kasha?
You're right. No, so I think it's just saying change the wording. According to Abaya is saying you give it to one of the two guys. You don't have to give your Eruv over. You don't have to give over your property to both guys. You only give it to one. That's Abaya's. That's what Abaya is saying. So the Gemara is saying. So then why don't you say give it le'echad she'irav, or le'echad sheloi irav, to one of the guys that made the Eruv, or to one of the guys that didn't make an Eruv.
But why would they say that? Why would they say the shelo Eruv? That's what I'm saying. That whole premise doesn't exist anymore. The whole concept of giving it to somebody who didn't make an Eruv, you can't do that.
Well, okay, I hear what you're saying. I think really the kashas from the first one is, why don't you say give it to one of the guys that made the Eruv?
Right.
Then I think for consistency's sake, it would change. I'm throwing that out there to answer you. I don't know if you don't like that.
It's fine. No, it's fine. It's just.
But I'm saying you hear what I'm. I think the first part is really the kasha. You're right. It's 100% right. Why didn't the Gemara just stop after ihachi listening le'echad she'irav and then say kasha?
Unless that's not correct. Unless that's not the mechanics of how it works. Meaning, unless it's not across the board that that concept of.
I wish I understood it well enough to understand if that was the mechanics.
I'm just curious if it was the same, meaning the same underlying premise that they were going to put across to all the cases. But
it's an excellent point. I don't know. The way I understand it in my feeble little brain is that it's from the first part. So why do you have to say? Yeah. So he says kasha. It's a kasha. Okay. Which a stam I don't understand. So the Gemara is leaving by a kasha. So why does that not mean that you're wrong? No, so we have a kasha. So now you don't have a way to explain the brisa. So that means Rabbah must be correct, right? But we don't say that. We had that a couple of weeks ago where somebody was machalak between kasha, teku, kasha. I don't remember what we said. I wish I remembered, but I don't remember.
Also, just one more thing. Didn't we have earlier a case with the Beis Saw and somebody dying, right? You had 2 people or 3 people in Beis Saw. And somebody said that if somebody dies, then you can't leave. But then somebody says no. If you die, you can't. If the person dies, you can leave it. Right? It was like earlier on in the Masechta.
But what do I have to do with?
You had 3 people from the outset of Shabbos, right? That were in a certain area, right? And whether or not you could walk, I guess was it Tzum, I guess. I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah. That was talking about if you had enough people to make an Eruv Tchum. Yeah.
Right.
So we're right. So we said if the guy died in the middle of Shabbos,
was a
So do we
machlokas.
say that
It
right?
was a machlokas whether or not you say that the tchum
Correct.
stands or it doesn't stand.
Correct.
It's interesting. It's a very interesting parallel to this. where
It's
not
very
even a
good
shaila.
because
It's not even a shaila.
it's very good because on Amud Beis it's mamish going to come up exactly what you're saying. Exactly. It's very good. Very good. You're on the ball tonight. You must have had your Wheaties today. So I don't know what to do. You might have had a good steak or something. Very good. So on Amud Beis is going to come into play. Very good. So echad. So then the Gemara goes through the different cases. So now we're up to we're 7-8 lines from the wide lines, right after the word kasha. So Gemara says echad shaloi Eruv. Right, so somebody who didn't make an Eruv can give his reshus to somebody who did make an Eruv. L'abaya de'isei, right? So according to Abaya, where there's a third guy there, meaning he didn't die, the kamash malan de'ain tzarich levatel reshus l'chol echad ve'echad. Right, then it's teaching you that you don't have to be mevatel reshus to each and every one. Just give it to one. The Rabba, the Hava who missed, but according to Rabba who says no, the guy was alive Friday night, then he died. But like Gazer zimnin de'isei, and we don't make a gezerah. That sometimes we have to be afraid that there is going to be a third guy there, meaning you can't assume that why aren't you afraid that every guy is going to be, there might be a situation where there's going to be a guy and he's not going to die and there's going to be two guys and you do have to give it this. So Rabba's saying, no, you don't make a gezerah that somebody might mess up. Okay. Then the next case, two people that parted the Eruv can give their reshus to somebody, to one person didn't make an Eruv. Pshita, of course, why not? To one person, everybody could be mevatel all their reshuyas to one guy. Now, the people in the yard have to be very nice, right? You got one idiot who didn't become part of the Eruv, and all these people are coming to give him their reshuyas. Right? That's a very nice achtastik yard to live in, right? So, but the Gemara says, Pshita, it's pasha they could do that. So the Gemara answers, Ma'od, the same, Eruv. Since he didn't make an Eruv, liknaseh, give him a knas. Right? Why didn't you be responsible? Why weren't you responsible and be part of the Eruv? Now we're going to make this shtick and let everybody be mevatel their property to you? So that's what the Mishnah is saying. Kamash Malon, we don't give him the knas. Why? I don't know. Fine. Next case. Two that didn't make the Eruv can give their reshus to two people that did make an Eruv. The Rabbah tana seifa l'gluye reshus. According to Rabbah, it said the seifa. Why? I mean, because really you don't really have to say the seifa to be megala onto the resha, right? Which means it just helps clarify the resha. L'abaya bei shaloyirvu it's trichalei. But to Abaya, two people that didn't make an Eruv, we need to tell you a chiddush. Why? Because I would have thought so we have to make a gzeira that maybe you're going to end up being mevatel to the two, so maybe the two shouldn't be able to be mevatel to the others, which is what the Gemara had to have on the top of the Amud. Kamash Malon Abaye is saying we're not concerned for that. Then the next case, Oyla echad shaloi Eruv, or they can give it to somebody who didn't make an Eruv. Lamali, what do you need that case for? Right? Why do you need to say another case of giving it to somebody who didn't make an Eruv? Ma'al the same ahani mili hechad de miktsas and Eruv miktsas and lo Eruv. I would have thought that you have to say it to a case where some made an Eruv and some didn't make an Eruv. But if everybody didn't make an Eruv, liknesu, why don't we make a liknesinhu? Why don't we make a knas on them? Kadei shaloi tishtach, so like the sorry, kadei shaloi tishtach tyrus Eruv. Why don't we make a gezerah that it shouldn't be forgotten? If everybody basically, why don't we make a gezerah that if everybody in this yard forgot to make an Eruv, so what are we going to say? Everybody should be mevatel their reshuyas to give it to one guy. So then the whole Eruv is going to be forgotten, like we've had a couple of times before. The whole Eruv is going to be this whole concept. So why don't we just tell them, you guys can't carry this Shabbos, finished, right? Kamash Malon, that we don't make these gezerahs. It's very interesting that, I don't know, it's very interesting, but it's interesting that it seems like the Chachamim were not interested in making gezerahs here or knas and anything like that. I probably because it's the Rabbanon. I mean, a lot of things the Rabbanon they do make gezerahs on, but it's seemingly Chachamim were not interested in stressing everybody out with this Eruv thing. I don't know if that's the proper lashon to use in the Gemara, but that's I think that's seemingly the Chachamim were not interested in making everybody so crazy with this. Okay, weiter. What was the next case? Right? Somebody who made an Eruv should not give his reshus to somebody who wasn't part of the Eruv. L'Abaya Tana Sefer L'Gloya Resha. So according to Abaya, the reason why it's saying it is just to teach the Resha. The Rabbah, but according to Rabbah, I did the Tana Resha, Tana Nami Sefer. Since it said the case, a similar case in the Resha, so we're just going to say the opposite, the opposite in the Sefer. That's okay. Two people that made an Eruv can't give the reshus to two people that didn't make an Eruv. Also, this is seeming to be, it's the opposite case of before. Hasu lamali. What do you need that case for? Like tzricha the batale chad minayu lechavre. Same that they did this shtick that we said on the top of the Amud. One of them was mevatel to his friend. Mao the same relay. So you would say maybe you allow it because at the end of the day, it's only one guy that's now not part of the Eruv. Kamash Rulon. So it teaches us keeping the bid and the batal loy have a say so loy, right? So you would, so since at the time he was mevatel, this guy was not really allowed to be part of the chotzer because it was two guys. So so therefore loy, it's not, he cannot do this shtick. Fine. And last case, and two guys that didn't make an Eruv can't give the reshus to two that didn't. That's two people that didn't make an Eruv can't give the reshus over to two people that didn't make an Eruv. That should also be simple, right? If two guys that made an Eruv can't give it to two guys that didn't make an Eruv, so two guys that didn't make an Eruv, of course, can't give it over to two guys that didn't make an Eruv, right? These guys are really a bunch of clowns. Nobody made the Eruv. No, it's coming to teach. It's coming to tell you that. So it's coming to teach that you're going to be kind of reshus from one on the condition that you transfer it to the other one. So you would.
I don't understand why didn't we say this before? Why didn't the case before was Shnayim? What's the case? Shnayim she'ervu nice and reshus and the Shnayim ain't Shnayim she'ervu nice and reshus the Shnayim she'ervu. Wouldn't that teach us that also? Because why couldn't they do the exact same thing? In the case of Shnayim she'ervu, meaning no, in the case of Shnayim she'ervu, right? They're not able to be makta almanas lahaknes, right? Or kani almanas lahaknes. So why don't we just learn from that case then? Because why couldn't they do that there?
Yeah, you're right.
So then what do we need the last case for? From the other case itself, we should know that.
You're right.
Because it doesn't work either.
I'm with you 100%. I don't understand why. These are just the different variations of the same shtick. That's what you're asking?
Meaning the other case, if in the case where it's Shnayim she'ervu, they're not able to be mocked to Shnayim she'ervu, why should we? So obviously there's no scenario that would work for them. So what? Obviously you see you can't be cutting al manas lahaknes because why shouldn't they be able to do that?
Yeah, I hear you, Kasha. I don't know. This was bothering me. I don't think it was bothering me to the extent it was bothering you, but I wasn't sure. Like why all of a sudden now we have three cases of different scenarios of basically the same thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And if in one case nothing works, so then you don't need the other case. Clearly nothing works in all these different dinim. You can learn from there.
Right. And Hanami. See, it's interesting. It's Rashi. Rashi, you ever see a Rashi on the bottom of the Rashi here, the bottom line? He says, the ayin la'el, where we explain this. Like Tosfos does that sometimes, right? Ayin, this Tosfos where we explain it. Here, Rashi says, ula'el prishnale. I explained it on the top, right? Way up on the top when we had the first time that Gemara thought that you would be able to do this shtick. Right? I don't think it's not going to answer your question though. Why the Gemara can't learn that out from the first one? And Hanami, I don't know. Yeah. Okay, very good. So now we're done with this. Now the Olam, this next part is a little bit more interesting. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that after last week's stuff or not, but okay. I keep putting my foot in my mouth. What should I do? I don't know.
Yeah, every time you say that, we're doing chazara. It's good.
Yeah, you're right. I'm just trying to get the Olam to get back into it. It's when you have a hard Amud like this, it's late at night. Anyways. Bomine Eruv Nachman, right?
Late at night, meaning maybe we should make this year earlier.
Oh, there we go. Where's Landau?
No, late at night.
Ding, 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 ding.
I'm here.
It'll be later at night.
Yeah. Okay. Bomine Eruv Nachman. right? So Rav had a shaila now. Yoirish ma'oshi about the reshus, right? So what happens? A father, right, forgot to make an Eruv, and then he died, right? So again, you have a yard. Let's say again, using the example, 5 guys living in the yard. One of them forgot to make the Eruv, and then he died Friday night, right? Now his son yarshins his house. Can he be mevatel his reshus and then allow the Eruv, right? So Bomin Roman Yoirish Mausha Yivatel Reshus. Can the Yoirish be mevatel reshus? What's the shaila? Now we're on Tome base. Heichadi Boila Ruve Me Esmal Motzim Arav Betuli Nami Motzim Mevatel. Where you had the ability to be part of the Eruv on Friday, and you didn't for whatever reason, so now today you can be mevatel it. Friday, if the kid would have come to us and said, "Hey, I want to be part of the Eruv, I'm going to yarshin my father's house," and we're going to tell him, "Fly a kite." This is not your house yet; it's your father's house still. You can't be part of our Eruv. We need your father to say it. So since he couldn't come be part of Eruv on Friday, like Matzim Arav, right? So on Me'esma, like Matzim Arav, he wasn't able to make the Eruv from yesterday, so lo matzim mevatel. So he's not allowed to be mevatel his reshus on Shabbos either, even though now he's a rightful owner. Or do we say no? The Yairish, the literal translation is right. Bra kara davua. That's the phrase that's brought other places. That a son is the leg, literally, of his father, meaning whatever rights his father had get transferred to him. Just like if his father was alive, he'd be able to be mevatel his reshus. So the son also can be mevatel his reshus.
Didn't we discuss this case Lagabe Guy? Because he's not able to be ma'ariv the day before. Why is that not similar?
Right, so it is similar. So the Gemara on the bottom of the Amud is going to go with a ger at least. The Gemara is going to discuss it with ger. It is similar.
I'm just saying, why didn't the Gemara bring in that case to be ma'ariv this?
Why didn't the Gemara bring?
Meaning, it's Mamish using the exact same svara the Gemara said earlier that he's not able to mevatel it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, he's not able to be ma'ariv it from the day before.
Yeah, so Taisus really asks, I think what you're asking is what Taisus kasha, second Taisus down. If Philemon don't allow mevatlin gabi meis nachri b'Shabbos, yachaliyas the ein mevatlin. Kivin asam hu da oisei reshus shu mevatel achshav haya lekoyach levatel me'esmal. I'll show you a mile. Yeah, I think that's what you're asking, right? Akiva, that's a Taisus kasha. Very good.
So how's he mechalik? I guess we don't have time. Fine. Later.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so Omar Lay.
Is the son allowed to carry?
What do you say?
Let's just say the father doesn't die. Is the son allowed to carry?
Well, is he a guest?
I'm saying the son's he's in the chutzner with him for Shabbos.
He's by his father's house.
Yeah.
Or not? How could he carry? The father didn't make Eruv.
No, I'm saying if the father did, let's just say the father did make an Eruv, right?
So why can't he? He's a guest by his father.
Saying so.
It's going to be the next mishna that a guest could.
The guest can.
Yeah, okay. Guests are allowed to. Or is it the previous mishna? We had it before. We're gonna have it again. I think that the guest is allowed. So he would be. I think he'd be considered a guest. Yeah.
So I was going to say the same way he's able to carry underneath his father's Eruv, right? He's under that, right?
I mean, you want to say that because he could, but that's also a guest. This is about balabas.
I mean, he's also it's his son. You know what I'm saying? He's
right.
Going to get the Yerusha. You know what I'm saying?
I hear, but this is a guest, and that's a balabas. I don't know. I hear he's coming from his own koyach as opposed to there he's a guest. I hear. Okay, so Amar Lei ani Amar mevatel. I say he can be mevatel. V'hani devei Shmuel tanu ein mevatel. And the Beis Shmuel says he can't be mevatel. Okay, so we have a machlokes how to learn this. Eisvei zeh haklal. Kol shemuter l'mitzvah Shabbos, huter l'chol Shabbos. This can be a very controversial. If you learn this brisa incorrectly, you could have you can take a serious cool out of this brisa. Eisvei, listen to this. Zeh haklal. This is the rule. Kol shemuter l'mitzvah Shabbos, huter l'chol Shabbos. If something's mutter for part of Shabbos, it's mutter for the whole Shabbos. And anything that's usher for part of Shabbos is going to be usher for the whole Shabbos. Meaning, so whatever the status is at the beginning of Shabbos, that's what it retains. It retains that status. Chutz mi mevatel reshus, except for being mevatel reshus, which we know. right? A guy wakes up Shabbos morning, he says, "Oh, I forgot to be part of the Eruv," so he's mevatel his reshus, and that works, right? Now, so now the Gemara discusses the brayso. Kol she'utu l'miktzah Shabbos mutu l'chol Shabbos. What does it mean? Something that's mutter for part of Shabbos is mutter for the rest of Shabbos. Going Eruv derech haPesach. Let's say you make an Eruv through a door. I mean, we said this a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week. The only way 2 yards can make an Eruv is if they have access to each other, right? If you have a wall in between 2 yards, they can't make an Eruv unless they had a ladder, right? We discussed if you have a ladder, maybe. But what happens if they do have an opening and then somehow the opening closes up on Shabbos? So now they really don't have access. So again, Kegayin Eruv derech haPesach, v'nistam haPesach, and then the opening gets closed up. Eruv derech chalain, v'nistam chalain, or they were making an Eruv through a window, and the window got closed up. Right? That's one case. Zeh klal l'suyeh. So anytime the Gemara says zeh klal, that comes to include another case. Zeh klal l'suyeh what? Mavui shenitlu karayso elichayav. Here's where you can get confused. Right? It's coming to include a mavui. Right? Remember, way back from the beginning of Masechta, a mavui. Right? How you matter carrying in a mavui? You either put a lechi over the opening, or a lechi. Or a kaira. Right? What happens if somebody rips down that lechi in the middle of Shabbos? So the Bryce is saying that it's kosher, right? Okay, so does that mean that if an Eruv falls down in the middle of Shabbos, the Eruv is good for the rest of Shabbos? Is that what we learn out from this Bryce? Because that would be a gevaldige kula.
Didn't we say that in the beginning of the Masechta?
That what? We said this by lechi kaira. What happens if your regular Eruv falls down? No, I don't think it works like that. Meaning lechi kaira. Let's say a little bit weiter, and we'll see. Kol shenesa lemiktas Shabbos, nesa l'chol Shabbos kula. What happens? What is that case if something's also for part of Shabbos, and it's also then it's also for the rest of Shabbos? Going shnei batim b'shnei tzidur shazram, 2 houses on either side of a public property. We had this last week. And then a guy came and put a fence around both houses on Shabbos. Right? So since it's usher, they can't make an Eruv together on Shabbos because the Eruv was non-existent. Right? So, but we did say again, let's not misunderstand. If it was around one person's house, you would be able to carry. Because that we said does work. A mechitza that falls out of the sky in the middle of Shabbos works for you. It's just, but you can have 2 people to take 2 yards on either side of Shabbos. That doesn't work. Anyway, what's it coming to include? It's coming to include a Nachri dies on Shabbos, right? Yeah. So meaning since it was Asr for when the guy was alive, so even though he died, we still say that the Chatzor is still Asr. The Katani chutz mi mevatel reshus. The Katani we learned, yeah. Now, so what do we want with this whole brayso? The Katani chutz mi mevatel reshus, except for somebody who is mevatel reshus. Ihu in yarish lai. Only a mevatel reshus is going to be matter the Eruv. A yarish can't. So the Gemara answers, Ema chutz mi toiras bittul reshus. Except for the Torah of Bittul Reshus. It doesn't mean that specifically the owner is being mevatel Reshus. It means the whole concept of Bittul Reshus is allowed on Shabbos. Right? Okay, so getting back to this thing, yeah, I think that this is only Lechi Kaira, which is really only there for a hecker, meaning you can carry in the Mavi without the Lechi and Kaira. We just wanted to put a hecker there. So once it's there at the beginning of Shabbos, that hecker is in the people's mind that there's something different about it. But when you have an actual Eruv that needs to be surrounded and the fence falls down, we're not going to say that your Eruv is up, even if it's not up. Right? Meaning again, Lechi and Kaira that you put by the Mavi is just to remind people, hey, no carrying past here, because a Mavi is very similar to Rosh Hashanah. So you put up like something as a hecker. Right? But everything else, Eruv falls down. If you don't have walls, you don't have walls. You can't carry there. If it just doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. Okay, so Eisve, another kasha. One of the people in the Chatzor died. Oh, so now, instead of leaving it to his son, he left it to somebody from the shuk, right? But but the person didn't live in the chutzner with them, right? So again, one of the members, one of the, what do you call it? One of the people from the yard died, right? And he left it for a stranger. When he leaves it to him, if he left it to him when it was still Friday, right? That's when he died. Then it's going to be awesome. But if he died once it was Friday night, then he doesn't aser, right? So what do you see? And then you have a different case. And this goes the opposite. Somebody from the shuk dies, right? But this is again, he died from the shuk, but he owned the house. Meaning he owned the house in this yard. He himself didn't live there though. And he left his house to somebody in the chutzner. Now this is the opposite. If he left it to him from Friday, because he didn't live there, so why should he aser? But when it was Friday night already, then he did aser. So then Gemara asks, why should he be? Why should he aser? Why doesn't he mevatel it? So the Gemara says, you clearly see that somebody who inherits a property on Shabbos cannot be mevatel. So Gemara answers, "My oyster now no, he's only asers it until he's mevatel it. But really, if he would be mevatel it right away, then it would work. So clearly, you see that he is allowed to. He is somebody who is Yerush is allowed to be mevatel. Okay, let's call it a night over here. It's a little bit of a rough daf, but okay, let's hang in there.
Two things. First of all, I know you mentioned this in the beginning. Why did the Gemara not decide to start out with this type of Eruvin and then work towards the Eruvin with the Hecker, so that we see where it's coming from, why we have that nowadays, as opposed to the real Eruvin?
What do you mean? Why didn't it? The Masechta should have started out the other way?
The Masechta started with Eruvin like what we have nowadays.
With the Hecker and all that stuff, right?
Right. But why didn't it give the background why we have the Hecker to begin with? It doesn't make more sense?
I hear. I don't know. It's a good question.
All right.
Yeah.
Second question is, there's a lot of back and forth.
I think Naftali, it would be very helpful if we did Eruvin again.
Yeah.
Now, don't shoot me now. I'm just saying, I think if we did Eruvin again, it would be a lot easier.
What time would shear be?
That could be the 8 to 9 shear, and then.
No, it's true, right. But I'm saying you're right.
Friday afternoon in the winter, about 2:30, we're gonna have a chazara on Eruvin, right? But no, I'm serious. If we would re-chazer the whole thing, it would make a big difference. It's very hard with these concepts. Which part to start first? I don't know. Yeah. What else?
Right. Now there's a back and forth a lot in the bourbon industry that Buffalo Trace started selling their chametz. Now I know you have nothing to do with this, but do you have anyone that I can call that would know if it's true?
But I understand. Was it going to help? It's not going to help. How often? How long did they age it?
CRC spoke about it, Reb Yaakov.
When? In Chicago?
Yeah.
Well, the newer bottles put out the list to begin with.
But the newer bottles, since they started selling it, say kosher on the bottles. Someone showed.
No, that's something else. That's something else. I'm talking about what they bottle for Blanton's and Happy and all that type of stuff. It's a huge distillery. I'm just saying is that.
But I understand. How long do they age their schnapps before they sell it to you?
No, bourbon doesn't get aged for that long. Doesn't get aged for that long.
Sometimes it's 8 years.
I seem to remember
unsophisticated people. Bourbon is unsophisticated, huh? Just
we just want to drink it. We don't want to have it on the shelf.
Shoot the alcohol in there and just give it out.
Jago, I seem to remember someone saying that they didn't understand the whole big deal with this chametz sheravarlav on bourbon to begin with.
Yes, I understand the big deal, but at the end of the day, it's a suffix de rabbanon.
Right.
That's all I was saying. It's a suffix de rabbanon, and some are makel that it would be okay even if you knew it was chametz sherav besa. Yes,
you
that
said
is true.
selling your chametz. It's the same level.
So you don't have a rabbi that you call for your alcohol shilas?
Nope. I have Atzola guys I call for that.
If it's just Isser D'Rabbanan, don't.
I would tell everybody to go like Rabbans and CRC.
Tully, I have a mailbox if you want to drop off some samples.
Dude, if you think I got rid of my bottles that I have that are Suffolk, you got something else.
Wait, so you're saying that the whole thing is a suffix derabanan and people are losing their minds over this
That's without a doubt. It's a suffix of the Rabbanon because there are. No, right off the bat, schnapps is in itself a shaila whether it's considered chametz or zeya ba'alma. Okay. Now we're getting a preview of next Masechta, Pesachim. A month from now, Bez Hashem, right? Whatever. Yeah, about 30.
Not even 10 o'clock yet, Lando.
Right, yes. Simon, right off the bat, schnapps is not real chametz. So many poskim hold that it's not. I don't think anybody holds you can drink it, but many hold that it's just zeya of chametz, right? And then to go say that it's chametz over Pesach, which whether that's aser ba'achila, b'hana, whatever, that's also a thing, right? And what else is more? There's another suffix thrown in there.
So you're saying
whatever it is, I'm saying
there's like 3 or 4 sfakim.
Yes, yes. But the poskim, lemaisa, the poskim were machmer. So I'm not any smarter than anybody else. But I'm just saying, in the overall scheme of things, I mean, it wasn't like this.
What's
for
their
a drinker, it's a big deal.
What's their svara to be machmer?
No, because lemaisa, we look at schnapps like it is real chametz. And lemaisa, it's chametz shalav pesach by a yid and finished. I mean, that's all.
Yeah, it's the Shiloh Rabbanon, so you just do it, don't ask, and then you don't do tshuva.
Very good. You say, dude, you mean drink and then ask. Very good. Very good. But the problem
they got this Jewish guy that does like all the distribution of beer in the area. You saw this article?
Oh, that guy with finally they got him to sell his
They got him for years and years.
The great Meiser. It was a great Meiser.
Lando, the
that
CRC
guy
says
him. You know, that guy stalked him.
Yeah.
The CRC site says that Buffalo Trace is not recommended unless purchased before 1992.
No, I know that's.
But the one that is okay is one with the hechsher on it. That seemingly is okay.
Help.
No, but it says the same with Blanton's. Blanton's is not good if it's before Pesach 1992.
I know.
The CRC has but the CRC just updated their website when I went onto the app.
I know. If it makes you feel better, though, I asked Rabbi Stein for an actual answer, and he said not to have it.
No, I know. I asked him years ago when this
One
came
second,
out.
but you see, here's the thing.
I remember exactly where I was. I was in the basement just cut on, and I was shocked the day before, and I asked him, and he said I shouldn't have it.
There I was.
I tore Kriya. What do you mean? I tore Kriya.
Nobody was chayshid you were in the big besmerish.
You know what's interesting? That
the funny thing is, you were in yeshiva. That was the chiddush. You were in yeshiva.
Too. That's the part that I want recorded. Shut off the recording. What do you call it? But it's interesting because if they hold it's usher, how can they not recommend it?
Because if they say usher, then they can get sued. Yeah,
nah,
I heard they can get sued.
No, you could say it's not. We don't believe it's code. I'm sorry, you can't. No, it's not. When it says not recommended, they're believing the door open that there is studim that there's to be makel. That's what it is. That's what I understand.
Yaakov, you know what it is? It's the same thing as the Star K saying Starbucks is treif. Unless you drive like around the block to go get it.
No, the truth is, you're right, Simon. If you medayik in the lashonos of the CRC with the Starbucks and the Star K with the Star, they never say straight out it's usher. They never say straight out it's usher.
You know why? Because it's not.
I always thought that was liability.
Rabbis that
no, it's not liability. It's liability from Hashem maybe, but not from. It's not liability from. You can't come out and answer something that's not straight out usher. Same thing with the medications on the CRC app. Check the medications. They'll never write that it's treif. It's treif. It has glycerin and who knows what other chazer in there. They only write not recommended because the bottom line is there are shitas that hold by medications that it's okay. And they're just being machmer, but they're leaving the door open. It's not recommended. That's
and Uri, about that with the update is that they're talking about what's on the shelves now. This is something that's happening now. They sold their chametz last year.
Right. So in 12 years, you can start drinking the bourbon.
No. There's some stuff out in a couple of years.
I don't know. Why don't you just ask somebody from the CRC?
Okay, I guess I'll do that. I just found out about tonight.
Don't be such a feinschmecker and find some other bourbon to drink.
And while you're at it,
I do.
While you're at it, ask him why you write not recommended.
I will. I'll ask him those two things.
What are you? Either it's usher or it's not.
No, it says it for the sherry cask stuff. Also, the portwood cask, all that stuff says not recommended. It doesn't say.
Because it says there are shyness they use.
Because the Ramosha L'chayra would be materit L'chayra. So I think no, but
YFR guy came out with a book about liquor of all yeshivas. I read it.
Yeah.
Had nothing about bourbon, so I put it down.
I'm sure I heard you're putting it into the Daf Yomi cycle. That's safe. But
that's a 7 o'clock share.
It happens to be CRC gets firmer and firmer every year because they have this like Second City issue where they want to it's crazy. I deal with them all the time over here. It's insane. The chumras that they put on certain things, I can't even like.
Are you recording still, Parrots?
Yes.
Good.
I, for one, think the CRC
this
is
part
amazing.
of the recording is being highlighted.